Everyone here, hope you guys are doing really well, and today's video is super special because it kicks off the first episode of my new weekly video series called Learn with Nikhil. Basically, every week I'm going to choose a new topic, whether it be a person or thing or technology or art form, and then either by myself or with special guests that I bring in from the industry or other disciplines, we're going to talk about it. And regardless of what I choose, the goal is this. At the end of every episode, we should have all learned something new about the world. Okay, so today for episode 1, I want to start with art, and more specifically, one of the greatest artists of all time, Leonardo da Vinci. When we think about the most influential or recognizable human beings in history, it would be hard not to consider Leonardo near the top of that list. He went on throughout his career to produce the two most famous paintings ever, The Last Supper and the Mona Lisa, and he became, very quickly, the archetypal Renaissance man with an unparalleled ability to combine art, science, and math. Honestly, a lot of people have considered him to be one of the 5 most influential human beings ever, but I still would not go as far as to call him a genius. In fact, in my opinion, to put the label of genius onto Leonardo would oddly minimize him, as if he were touched by the hand of God. So no, Leonardo da Vinci was not a genius. He was something more, and today I want to explain why. When we use the word genius to describe someone, it often insinuates that they were born with some special ability or talent or power or something of the sort. It's almost as if they were struck by lightning and suddenly became something more. Leonardo da Vinci, though, was none of that. He wasn't like Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, where he was born with so much mental processing power that normal human beings couldn't even fathom it. Instead, he barely had any formal schooling, he couldn't even read Latin very well, and most importantly, he couldn't do long division, and that's what makes his story more inspiring. Leonardo's mind was of the type that we can understand and learn from, and possibly emulate. His successes were based off of curiosity and intense observation. In fact, it was art historian Kenneth Clark who called him the most relentlessly curious man in human history. All of his skill is shown by 7,200 pages of his notebooks. Scribbled next to each other are sketches of flying machines, bridges, plants, animals, eddies of water, bridges, buildings, literally everything under the sun. Leonardo had taken the time to observe, visualize, and then pen into his notebook. In his notebooks, Leonardo would write to himself little tasks like describe the tongue of a woodpecker, or sometimes he would ask himself questions like, is the fish in water swifter than the bird in air? Regardless, he would always study the geometry of random objects, and in general, he just wanted to understand how everything worked. He wasn't born with some beautiful mind where he could just show up into an art studio, take a paintbrush, and create something amazing. Rather, he was curious, passionate, and full of wonder, and that's what allowed him to paint like no one else before him, and likely like no one else after him. When Leonardo wanted to paint sunlight on a set of drapes, he would spend days studying the way in which the sun would pour into the room through the window. Or when he wanted to paint hair, he would sketch out the motion and the physics of it. He would look at the way that hair danced in the wind, and he would draw pictures and constantly remind himself of the way everything worked. He took pride in being what he called an unlettered man. I wanted to quickly point you to a quote that Leonardo himself wrote. I'm fully aware that my not being a man of letters may cause certain presumptuous people to think that they may with reason blame me, alleging that I am a man without learning. Foolish folk! They strut about puffed up and pompous, decked out and adorned not with their own labors, but by those of others. They will say that because I have no book learning, I cannot properly express what I desire to describe. But they do not know that my subjects require experience rather than the words of others. I will leave you today with a quick visual example. It is said that no one could paint hair or fabrics like Leonardo. He made a still image move around the room, and a great example of this is with his painting Tobias and the Angel. The one on the right is by Leonardo, and the one on the left is by a leading Renaissance competitor at the time. Look at Leonardo's. Look at the way the cloak billows out and the way the tassels and the threads flutter in the wind. Leonardo's works are truly dynamic and fluid. In his version, the angel looks like she's just going out for a stroll, but in the other one, she looks planted, firm, her feet almost stuck to the ground. That's the hallmark of Leonardo's work. He could paint fabrics and hair and movement like no one else ever could. And it wasn't because he was just born a genius who could paint. It's because he took the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours necessary to understand physics and the geometry of hair and the beauty of colors. Not a genius for sure, but clearly something a lot more. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first episode, and I hope we all learned something about the great artist that Leonardo da Vinci is. If you guys like this series and want to see more and follow along, make sure you subscribe, shout me out on social media, but as always, and most importantly, I will see you guys in the next one.